Okay, today what we're going to make, it's going to be longer than today, but I made this a while ago. This is a case for a ukulele. Hell of a job. It's really cool. This one's made out of oak, and you see I lined it with some plush material and actually put padding in here. But this is just a little Dinkmeister ukulele. It's kind of cool, but kind of sounds like crap. So what I want to do is I want to make another one for this 1950 Gibson ukulele. This is a classic instrument. It sounds awesome. It's got some age scratches on it, probably mostly from my fingernails, but it's a great instrument and it really deserves a quality case. So what we're going to do is I bought a sheet of laminated, sometimes you call it Luan plywood, just a quarter sheet, costs about 10 bucks. And then for the edges, I bought two pieces. This is poplar, and these are 48 inch long and about 5.5 inches wide. But we're going to have to cut them down. We're probably going to cut them down to 4 inches. But we'll get to that later. Now the first step in doing this is I made a blank. Now this started out as a full sheet of craft construction paper. Now if you look at what I did here, I laid out the uke on it, and I took a Sharpie, and I was very careful not to get any ink on the ukulele, and I traced it out. Very simple to do. Once I got that piece done, I laid out my angles. Now the way this is going to work is this is going to be a coffin case, and these are all just kind of eyeballing it. So I made it 6 inches at the top and the bottom. The two sides are 21.5, and the top sides are 6.5. Now those were all just eyeball guesstimates. If you have better proportions or you have a better eye for this kind of thing, by all means improvise. But that's kind of the basics of how we're going to lay this out. Now what I'll do for this is I'll take my blank and I'm going to tape it with some easy lift or some painter's tape to my plywood. Plywood is going to be the top and the bottom of the case. And because it's just good practice, you put the longest side on the edge of the plywood just so you don't have to cut it. That's one less long cut you have to do. And then we tape it in place. Just go around the edge. And then we'll trace it. Tracing is easy. It's just what you learn in kindergarten. Just got to be a little careful not to hit your fingers because then you get bumps on it. Now these trace marks, these are going to be where I'm actually going to cut the wood. I'm going to use probably my circular saw because I don't have the correct rip fence to do this on the table saw. No worries though, I'm getting pretty good at that, and I still have all of my fingers. Now, if you look at my wood, that sounded awful. But you can see I've got the outline of the coffin right here. I don't have to cut this long edge. I start here and I just work my way around. Ought to go pretty quickly once I get to cutting. Now, to save space, I'm going to go ahead and trace this on the other side of the board. I should have almost a half a sheet of this stuff left over that I can use on another project, because this is 24 inches wide. And when you're tracing this, it's okay if it's not an exact fit. In fact, if it's a little bit bigger, you're probably all right, because what you're going to do is when you assemble it, you're going to leave a little bit of a lip over the edge, and that lip will be sanded down. Now, there's two things that's really important to have when you're doing this kind of work. It's important to have some decent tunes on the radio. I got Pandora going. And it's also important to have a beer waiting for you, because this is Las Vegas. It gets goddamn hot here, and I'm going to get real thirsty real fast working in the garage. But now you can see I now have two of the coffins here, and I can reuse this half a sheet for another project somewhere else down the line. Okay, for this next step, I've already done this once. But what I did was I took a Sharpie and I actually went over my lines that I drew with the pencil. And the reason for that is, number one, it's a lot easier to see. As you can tell by the video, you can actually see these lines. Number two is when you're tracing off of paper, even though this is a good construction paper, sometimes it bends and wiggles around a little bit. And also, I cut this out using a pair of scissors. Lines aren't exactly perfectly straight. So, going over the lines, I use a steel yardstick, and I use it, put it right up against the edge of the line, and I traced it with the Sharpie. Now, when you do that, you want to make sure you're as close to the line as possible with the Sharpie to the outside of it. That way your dimensions will be exact when you cut this. The lines that the Sharpie made are actually the width of the saw blade. So when I cut that, it will be the exact right size. Let's hope it works. Okay, I'm going to prep this to cut. Now, a couple things. First, I'm going to set up my circular saw for the right blade depth. Now, this is kind of an optional thing. I just found that it works best when it's set correctly. This is 1/4 inch plywood. I set my depth here for about 3/8 of an inch. That gives me enough to get through it, but I'm not chewing, and it's not going to break out the wood up on the top as the blade comes around, because most of the motion of the blade is going to be directly into the cut. I know that sounds kind of dopey, but now always do your saw adjustments with it unplugged. Don't plug it in. That's why I still have all 10 of my fingers, is I'm pretty meticulous about keeping my saw unplugged. Now, the other thing is setting up your workpiece. You can see there's the edge of the table right here. Now, I'm going to be cutting my short end here first. And I'm probably going to cut all the way across, but I'm going to cut this, and then I'll cut my long sides and finish it up. Now, when you do this, I always set it up so that I'm not cutting into the table. Now, there's two schools of thought on this. One school is do it my way, and at least then I won't be chewing up this crappy table. Actually, the correct way is to have a table you don't mind getting chewed up, and what that will do for you is that will keep it from chipping out. I think with this material I'll be okay and it won't chip out much. Now, the other thing that really helps a lot is get yourself some clamps and clamp the workpiece to the table. There's nothing more annoying than being in the middle of a cut and having the stupid workpiece slipping and sliding around on it. Now that's secured really good to the table. I should be able to just cut right through, and this will drop off, and then I can cut the rest of the pieces out. Okay, take two. I finished cutting out my blanks. This is the top and the bottom. And probably can't see it with the camera, but the edges are nice and smooth. They're straight. The way that worked was because I had the blade set correctly on the circular side. So that worked out very well. And the two pieces are very close in size. There may be a 1/16 of an inch of difference between the two. Now what I'll do to resolve that is I will clamp these two together and I'll sand down the edge. I have a sanding block, and you do it by hand. It's not going to take that much effort. And that will get them both to be exactly the same size and the same shape. I did have a little bit of wavering in a couple of the cuts, so that's going to have a very slight effect on it. And I want to get them as close as possible together. And what that'll do is that will also eliminate some of the final sanding when I get the sides cut. The next step will be measuring out the sides, getting them the right width, and trying to measure out and cut my angles. Angles are always tricky, and I think I'm going to have to go over to the hardware store and buy a protractor for that. So for the next episode. What I've done here is I clamped the two work pieces together, and then, like I said before, always clamp it to the table. It just makes life so much easier. A wise guy once told me you can never have too many clamps. I'm a firm believer of clamping the hell out of everything, so just make sure you do that. Now, when I clamped it, I made sure that the bottom sides are perfect. Now you can do this by feel because you're still going to do a little bit of sanding, but they match up, and one of the long sides matches up perfectly. So I got two sides that match. These two sides here, they're a little bit off, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. It's going to take some elbow grease to sand them down, but just take your standard sanding block, and you can use a coarse sandpaper, maybe something like 80 to 100 grit sandpaper, because all you're doing is you're roughing at the sides. And you're just going to try and keep even strokes, and you want to go the full length of the workpiece with your strokes so that you don't get low spots. And you just keep doing this, and it's going to take a long time, and it's going to build up the muscles in your right arm. Like stroking anything else, it builds up the muscles, and eventually you'll get it down to where you'll see both of the pieces. When you're sanding both of the work pieces at the same time, you know you've got it where you need it. I'm going to let the camera rest while I finish this, and I'll come back. Okay, before we go on to cutting the sides to this case, there's some geometry that we have to do, some basic angles, because what we want to do is we want to cut these bevels so that they match up. So the thickness will be the same, they'll come and they'll have a good solid flat joint right in the middle. So in order to do this, we have to do some geometry. Now this is our template. And what I've done here was I marked out this distance from here to the first angle, which is 6.5 inches. Then I also marked over here to the second part the same distance, 6.5, and then I split the difference here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to manufacture a template that I can use to set the bevel or set the angle of my saw blade. So when I cut the side pieces, I can actually cut the perfect bevel on them. And now I'm going to have to do this side and this side and this side and this side. So once I get that, these will have to be a different cut, but we'll get to that later. It's going to be the same principle. So basically, here's how the geometry works. You have just the basic outline. That's the basic outline of our case. So if you measure this distance, this 6.5 inches, and then you measure 6.5 inches here. I should probably draw this on the outside. Right here. Now, I'm going to put this here. So these are equidistant. Then I'm going to make a center line going here. Now this will be a 90-degree. So this angle here is 90 degrees. So what I'll do is, now that I have this, I can measure this right here, and I'm going to say it's going to be somewhere around 11 inches or so. I could probably measure it and tell you exactly. In fact, why don't I? Get my measuring stick. See if my guess was any good. I said 11 inches. And I was completely wrong. It's comes to 12 1/4. Okay, so I have 12 1/4. So what I'll do, I'm going to make a jig so that I can measure the correct angle on my table saw blade. So I will cut a piece of cardboard. Oh, one other thing. This dimension here, between here and here, I'll need as well in order to get things straight. And that dimension comes out to be for the sake of argument, we could make it 2 inches and that would be just fine. So we'll just say that this is 2 inches here. So I'm going to cut a square of corrugated cardboard. I know it doesn't look very square. And it's going to be 2 inches by 12 1/4 inches. Now, I'll measure the halfway point. And I will make triangles. Now these are going to be exactly the same. So I'll cut that triangle out, and then when you cut it, this is the hypotenuse, or side C. If you lay it on its side, so you've got A, B, and C. Side A, this is the angle of your saw blade that's going to cut your bevel. So once I get this cut, I can measure and I can use that as a guide to adjust the angle of the blade on the table saw to make these beveled cuts here and here. For these two and these two, it's going to be the exact same thing because I know I made these both 6 inches and this angle is 6.5. So it's going to be slightly different on these two cuts, but it'll be this different on these ones as well. So for our next lesson, I'll go ahead and I'll rip my side pieces, and using the ukulele, I've measured the thickness of the uke, the actual body, and that comes out to be just about 2 3/4 inches. Now, if you look at the instrument, you've got the bridge that sticks up and the pins, and that sticks up probably about a good 1/2 inch. Then if you figure there's going to be also a cardboard underlayment for me to put the fabric on, as well as the batting, which is going to be the padding for the inside of the case. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my side pieces at 4 inches wide. Right now the side pieces of the poplar that I bought are at 5.5 inches. So I'll just set up the rip fence on the table saw and cut them at 4 inches, and then I can make these bevel cuts here. So that'll be tomorrow's project.